Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
Welcome back. Okay, we talked about southern Maine, but what about the other markets in the state? With us to discuss the commercial real estate markets in midcoast and central Maine, we have Doug Erickson, a broker with Coldwell Banker Commercial SoundVest Properties in Rockland, and Chris Paszyc, a broker with CB Richard Ellis, the Boulos Co. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time from the conference to sit down and talk for a bit. I'm glad you could be here. Doug, we want to start with you. The first part of the first segment we had, we talked about southern Maine office and industrial properties. Now I want to ask you about midcoast. And what's your assessment, real quick assessment of how's the commercial property market in the midcoast?
The rental market is holding up very well, Alan. We've not seen a rush of vacancies as other parts of Maine have seen. Our occupancy levels have held up very nicely to the point that we're either 1%, if we're talking about retail, is less than the retail is less than 1%. The offices are about 6%, 7%, but those are starting to fill up a bit.
How's that compared to 2004, let's say 2005?
It's a lot better. 2004, 2005, we had a lot of vacancies running between 8 and 10%, depending on the sector.
Okay. And other than office space, what about other commercial?
Other commercials are very low vacancy factors, generally about 1% or less.
Okay.
In the case of retail, there's practically no vacant space, and the same thing with industrial space.
Really? And that's interesting, because that really is different than I think than other parts, the parts of the state, especially southern Maine that I've heard about. We'll hear about central Maine in a minute, but what do you attribute that to?
I think the activity that's been generated from all the media that's been covering the Midcoast area for the past 3 years. It's brought people to the area, and as a result have brought small businesses to the area.
Okay.
And I think that had a lot to do with it.
So bucking the tide, and you're actually doing
and I think
some
the quality of life as well.
Okay, good. But we know that Central Maine has even better quality of life. So tell us about the market in Central Maine, too, for commercial properties. And first of all, what do you consider to be in that Central Maine market?
Well, we consider Lewiston, Auburn, and Augusta to really be Central Maine.
Okay, good.
Okay, and Central Maine generally has been pretty steady. We don't see the big ups and downs of some of the larger markets. We're not really overbuilt, so we don't experience a lot of vacancy as such.
Okay, interesting. I was looking at some of your materials from your presentation, and Augusta obviously is a big part of that market. And your speculation about kind of the new administration, we got a new administration. What's that going to mean to the Augusta's largest employer, which is state government, and the office space that's there? How do you think that's going to affect?
Absolutely. Augusta is primarily dependent upon government and nonprofits. And with the LePage administration's focus on cutting costs and shrinking government, we just can't help but see the effects of that in the real estate market.
And they're already selling properties, right?
Yeah. We've actually been contracted to sell a number of properties for the state in meeting with mixed success.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, part of the problem with the state facilities is deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance is the first thing to be eliminated from budgets. Thus, the state properties haven't been updated in quite some time.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, and it was also in your presentation, it's in Hollowell, the Stevens
School
campus.
Complex.
Yeah, what a wonderful place, but those are old buildings that probably the state was saying, let's stay away from that as much as we can.
65 acres and 136,000 square feet. It's a lot of the buildings are in rough shape. Some of them are actually serviceable, but it's going to require a developer with some vision to go in there and spend some money. Yeah,
great view from there. I want to ask both of you, and either one of you can jump in, just in general, I guess, is it still considered to be a buyer's market now, or a leaser's market, too, for that matter? Are they in control? Because at least in southern Maine, we knew that the vacancy rates were so high that you could write your own ticket?
It's been interesting. The pricing has actually held pretty steady. You saw in the presentation there were a couple deals out there, but generally pricing actually has been holding pretty steady. I've only seen maybe 10% drop in pricing.
Okay. How about in midcoast?
Well, we've seen a little bit of drop in the pricing. I think we're seeing a tendency where it's turning from a buyer's market into a seller's market. We're sort of in between. We don't have the luxury of having so much investment properties as you might experience in your market. We have very little quantity of that, and as a result, it's more of a seller's market than it is a buyer's market.
So you don't have the glut that some other places have right now. Good. Another question I asked this morning too, earlier in an earlier segment rather, for the southern Maine real estate folks was, okay, let's say I'm wanting to expand, my business is ready to expand, or I'm ready to bring one in, and I can find some good cheap properties, I can find a good deal. Is there money available? Are bankers working with me? Can I find the capital I need? What do you expect finding out there?
I would say that there's some money depending on the bank and depending on the quality of the loan.
Which ones are good? I'll write that down. No, I'm just kidding.
It really depends on the borrower and what the borrower's wherewithal is. But for the most part, there is money. It's not as easy as it has been in years past to get it, but it's still being lent.
Yeah, well, the SBA 504 program, we actually this year we were able to take advantage of that program and close some decent-sized transactions for regional players.
Is that what banks are looking for too? That partner, that kind of bridge or a guarantor?
Well, not all banks, but there are some banks who seem to specialize and are very comfortable with the SBA programs.
Yeah, especially as things tightened up, they wanted to be able to have some of that guarantee there.
Absolutely, and for a small business to be able to put 10% down in today's market is pretty compelling.
Chris, I'm going to come back to you. In Lewiston in particular, the Lewiston-Auburn area, the older industrial spaces. What's the status of that stuff now? How's it going?
Well, it's older industrial space is functionally obsolete. Right now, what we've been seeing is a lot of new buildings being built out by the interstates of both Exit 80 and Exit 75.
So it's still cheaper to go build new than to renovate one of those old ones?
Or is it just I don't even think you can renovate those older buildings. Okay. Ceiling height is of paramount importance to a lot of people. Right now, it's all about the cubic foot.
Right.
And these newer facilities give them the economies of scale that they need.
Okay. And a question to both of you, too, then about construction, because I asked that earlier as well. Can we get a good value for they're not building a lot of new buildings out there now, especially new residential, or rather new commercial buildings. Can you get good construction relatively cheaply now if you need to do renovations or even new building?
I think the prices are still up.
Really?
And I think that we're at the point where it is almost economically feasible to go ahead and build a building, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Final question for this segment, I guess, was foreclosures. Obviously, that's a big issue in the residential side. Was that ever an issue in the commercial real estate side?
Touch wood. It's not hit the midcoast market at all.
Neither in Central Maine. We haven't been seeing. There's been very little bank sale activity.
So that whole side of the lending market was much more prudent than the residential side, apparently.
We'll see. I think it's more the property owners are finding ways to cover their own costs at this point of the game.
Last question, yes or no. So is the double dip thing, is that gone now? Is that fear gone?
I think for the most part in the midcoast area, yes.
Yes.
Good. That's a good way to end this segment, I think. Stick around. We're going to have you stick around for some more afterthoughts. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks. You can catch more of this discussion in our exclusive afterthought segment seen only on the web. Just go to mainebiz.biz and click on the Mainebiz Sunday link. Stay with us to hear what other folks at the Merida Conference are predicting for 2011. We'll be right back.
Mainebiz Sunday is made possible in part by funding provided by the Finance Authority of Maine.